all kinds of different things, but Ayurveda was one of her specialties. And after like it totally like fixed all the problems, changed things around, and it really amazed me with how different it was from what I was used to. Like you go to the doctor, and if you're really sick, they may take an X-ray or an MRI, or they take a blood sample or do something like that. But then here's this person like just telling me how to do a few simple things, and then like it just makes the problem go away, seemingly from the root. And I was really amazed. And so through that therapist and just living my life, I've come to learn a lot about Ayurveda and health, just to try to remain healthy. And so I wanted to share some of that today. But Ayurveda is a huge subject, and so I could probably speak for 4 or 5 of these evenings. So I figured maybe I'll just, the next time I speak, I'll speak about something related to that. But so I wanted, at least one huge topic in Ayurveda is eating, and a lot of you all were talking about how when you had indigestion, your mom would either give you Sprite, something fizzy, or something with ginger, and that would help, or do something with your stomach. And like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that those who are regulated in their habits of eating, sleeping, in regulation, that they can mitigate all their pains by practicing the yoga system. And so here we're here, in the Brooklyn ISKCON Hare Krishna temple in the Bhakti School. So we're talking about how to practice Bhakti yoga, which is part of the yoga system. But kind of on a lower basic, more basic level, you need to be healthy before you can seriously practice any kind of meditation, any kind of yoga. And so it is important to understand about that. So with that, I guess let's dive into Ayurveda and eating and many factors behind that. We'll go through the whole thing. But I guess first we had to introduce Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is 2 words: Ayur, which means life, Veda, which means knowledge. And so when you put it together, life, knowledge, or in a more better translation, you could say the science of longevity, or how to live, the knowledge of living, how to live a good life, basically. And Western like psyche, if you ask if someone is in good health, they'll basically, like, as long as they're able to walk and like go to work and do something, like then they're in good health. But it's a lot different in Ayurveda. I have here. Can you all read that? Who wants to volunteer and read it for everyone? Because it's hard to turn my neck and read it. Krishna.
Ayurvedic definition of health. One is in perfect health when the 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, digestive fire, digestion, assimilation, and metabolism, all the body tissues and components, dhatus, and all the excretory functions are in perfect order, with a pleasantly disposed and contented mind, senses, and spirit.
So that's, I mean, there's some words there like dosha and dhatus and things like that, kind of Sanskrit words. But the last one is kind of important. Like, if you're, this is the definition of actual health. Like, if you're not content, if you're depressed or you're sad or you're upset, if like if you like just take someone off the street and they don't have any broken limbs, they don't have any open sores, they don't have a cold or a fever, but they're like, let's say it's a homeless person and they're worried about where they're going to sleep. Modern medicine might be like, okay, they're in great health. There's nothing wrong with them. Whereas in Ayurveda, they would say, that's okay. That's definitely something. Their mind is going to be disturbed by that, and you have to if you want them to be in good health, you have to deal with that. Or if someone doesn't, you take another person off the street and they may have no problems that you can see, again, no broken bones or anything like that, but they're feeling a little lethargic and they have low energy. Like, how many people have had low energy in the last week? Yeah, like, so that's, I mean, me too. I'll raise my hand. I'm not gonna lie. And so that's a sign of bad health. Or if someone isn't, if you're not going to the bathroom regularly, then that's a sign of bad health, or at least not top physical health, which the whole point of Ayurveda is to bring you to that stage. and then when you're in that stage, you can achieve anything you want to achieve. And so we'll talk about, you know, many different things, at least related to eating. Like even if you feel sluggish, how many people feel sluggish after eating? Like even that's like technically you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to feel energized after eating. Or if you wake up, you feel tired, not rested. That's another aspect of poor health, which is, you know, it's you know, like maybe modern medicine might say, oh, just, you know, just drink coffee, you'll be fine, or do something like that, where it's actually a deeper issue. And so when we if we compare, like modern medicine is called allopathy, and there's some other kind of modern medicines, but that's like the main one. If you go to the hospital here in America, at least, that's what all the doctors and the surgeons and the different nurses, they're all practicing uh, allopathic medicine, which if we just we're just briefly diving into what is Ayurveda before we get into specifically eating. And also, who's keeping track of time? Because sometimes I can go past the time, and I just want to kind of be. And what is it's 7:36 right now? What am I shooting for?
8:15.
8:20. Okay. Okay, so we're pretty good on time. Says, I guess it's dangerous to say, but okay. Um, so in the approach of allopathic medicine, they have, you know, the germ theory of disease, that there's all these germs everywhere, and if they get on you and they start multiplying, then that's going to cause sickness. They have um, the the aiotic theory of disease, which means that each disease can be reduced to a singular cause, and if you just eliminate that singular cause, then you'll deal with it. And they have a reductionist approach where each of the different parts of the bodies are separate and they're interconnected. So you therefore have so many different specialists, you know, respiratory, circulatory, so on and so forth. I mean, who has been to a specialist doctor for some issue that they've had in their life? Andrew, yeah. And so our Ayurveda, we heard the word in the definition of health, and we'll talk about it a little bit soon, is based off your dosha, your, which in English is kind of like your psychophysical archetype. So they have a classification of your body type. They have qualities that any substance that you take or any experience that you have can be analyzed according to. And then they have dhatus, which is the different layers of your tissue. And it's a whole interchanging theory. And they see the individual and their whole life as like a perfect unit able to thrive if it's in proper balance. Whereas the allopathic medicine kind of sees the whole, you know, the whole universe and nature is fighting against you, and you have to like fight against it to win. It's kind of like a Western kind of way of looking at things. And so, where allopathic medicine will treat the symptoms and the diseases which are already there, which are basically chronic, which are already showing their face, you know, like like if you have pain, take a, you know, ibuprofen or something like that, or you have a headache, take an ibuprofen, or if you know, have blood pressure, take an aspirin, where these things are caused by something else, but you're just kind of taking the symptoms away rather than dealing with the cause. Whereas Ayurveda tries to solve issues before they become chronic and focus on the person's entire lifestyle. Oh, you're getting a headache because, you know, you don't know how to deal with the people that you're living with, or you're getting high blood pressure because, you know, you need a little more exercise, or so on and so forth. And so therefore then, to be able to see something before it becomes chronic, then the diagnosis is also different. Like in allopathic medicine, you're going to go get an X-ray, an MRI, a blood test, a lab test, so many different, you know, when during COVID, you're getting a COVID test to see if you have COVID. Whereas in Ayurveda, this is one of the amazing things, that when I saw an Ayurvedic practitioner, that they do pulse reading. where it's kind of like this spooky thing. They just take their fingers and put it on your wrist, and then like they just start like, oh, you're feeling this and feeling this and feeling that and this and that, this and that and this and that. And one thing that really amazed me was my girlfriend at the time. Her mom came to see the Ayurvedic doctor, and she took the pulse, and she's like, "Oh, something's missing. You don't have your ovaries, do you?" And she could feel that, and then her mom had some problem and had this surgically removed, and the doctor could feel that. I was like, "Wow, this is like amazing." And so Ayurvedic diagnosis is able to see something very quickly, very keenly, and very uniquely and personally to that individual. If someone's knows what they're doing, they can quickly see basically the imbalance in what's happening just doing the pulse and maybe a quick brief interview and seeing a few other factors. Like one part of Ayurvedic diagnosis, if you just look at your tongue, you can actually tell a lot of things of your body just looking at your tongue, and it's quite amazing. And then from that subtle knowledge that they get, they can do gentle therapies to kind of correct these problems before they ever become chronic. Whereas in allopathic medicine in the West, we until you're completely fully blown, have some crazy disease, you don't even think to go to the doctor. And so they one I would say in modern medicine they have surgery very well down, and also if you need some really heavy kind of medicines and you already have a really bad problem, they do have tools to deal with that. If you have cancer, you can get radiation and chemotherapy and all these things, which are some sort of tool to deal with that. Whereas Ayurveda, their therapies are more, here's a naturally occurring herb compared to like a pharmaceutical that the allopathic would be like, let's extract the singular molecule from this plant that we think is the active component that's doing this, and then let's run huge tests on it and see if it works in individuals. Whereas Ayurveda will almost say, whatever's growing in your backyard, like in India, the herbs in India are more well known in Ayurveda because the main people who are practicing Ayurveda came from India. But a solid Ayurvedic doctor can actually anywhere see the qualities of the different naturally growing, fauna, and prescribe them according to how they need to rebalance the individual. And so, along with, we were talking about doshas, which means like your bodily archetype. We were talking about in that first slide, we're talking about doshas. It says dhatus, um, and there's qualities. And so Ayurveda has this nice kind of breaks down anything, any substance and any experience that you can have can break down into these 10 kind of sliding scales from like one opposite to the other. And in Sanskrit, it's called gunas, or just qualities. And they're like counterbalancing. So if you have something really heavy, you can counterbalance it with something light. Something's, very like dull, you can counterbalance it with something very sharp, and so on and so forth. There's these 10 different qualities, and these are essential to understanding how to treat something. So for example, we live in New York. It's a kind of cold climate. It's in the winter. It's a cold season. And if I give you an ice cold, like just glass of ice water or something like that, or you're just eating frozen food all the time, then likely there's going to be something wrong with you, that like the coldness from all of that is just going to aggravate something. And so what do you do to remedy that? Can anyone guess? I mean, this is like, yeah. Andrew, can you say that again? Yeah. It's hot. So where's something that's hot that you could take hot soup? What's like a hot experience? Like they were mentioning the Finland steam room, or you get a soothing, some sort of soothing bath. You have heating spices. Bundle up, wear warm clothes. I mean, that's what you see in the winter. Everyone's wearing warm clothes. Then when it gets too hot, then they wear less. And so this is just a quick crash course into the basics of Ayurveda. One of the most amazing things of Ayurveda is its dosha theory, or your psychophysical archetypes. And so we have kind of three, you could say, color palettes, or three colors, like as in, you have three primary colors, and combining them can create so much variety. So you have three Ayurvedic doshas, which everyone kind of has their own specific ratio, and they, according to that ratio, they dictate certain things. So if we go through them, there's pitta, what they have kapha, and there's vata. And each of these doshas embodies a combination of elements and qualities. So it's kind of this energetic force of nature, like just there's just pitta, kapha, and vata, and we're all some sort of balance of these. Some people are like just one third, one third, one third, and some people are more pitta and less kapha and vata. Some people are more kapha and less the other two. Some people just have two that are more and one that's very less. And if you are a little thoughtful about your own qualities, even just like looking at everyone, you can kind of see it, like everyone's different doshas are manifest in their physical bodies and their personalities and their preferences, and especially in the things that generally go wrong with their health and the things that they excel in. So you have pitta. So this is in Vedic knowledge, we have the 5 elements: air, ether, water, fire, and earth. And so they combine to make these different doshas, are these elements, some of the elements, and plus qualities. What's happening? They do something. It went away. So pitta is fire and water, and so it governs things like digestion, transformation. With digestion goes your appetite. They say, oh, he's got a like really fiery appetite. Your absorption, assimilation, and it's also things like your like transformation of ideas, which or if you're able to see something and tell the difference between something and something else, that's your intellect. So that's also is dealt with by the pitta dosha. Or your charisma, your courage, and your ambition. Like he's very fired up, he's very ambitious. Even in our language today, we can kind of these qualities will come out. So if someone's mainly pitta, they're generally seen more as leaders. They're if they're messed up, then they can get angry. They have really good digestions. They never see them complaining about not being able to eat. And more or less, they're going to probably complain that they're hungry and they need to eat something. They may get hangry. But then on the other side of things, you have kapha. Now, kapha is earth and water, and with that comes the qualities of heaviness, slowness, coolness, smoothness, soft, stability. With stability, you get things like stamina and regulation. With the stability and the denseness, that's like the structure for your whole body. Like our bones are considered kapha. Anything to do with like your fat and fluid balance, and your strength in your muscles has to do with kapha. So if someone has primarily kapha, like if you look at the strong man of the world, who's like Eddie Hall, is that his name? There's like some of the strongest men in the world that can like actually move the most things. Their primary dosha is usually kapha. Kapha, it's easy for them to get to body build and to get very strong. And they're also, whereas the pitta may be like a leader, they're the ones that are more of, they can like they can cool things off. They can be the intermediate between people. They can, if you have a good kapha person in the group, they're the ones that hold everyone together. Like my best friend is very kapha, and he's the one that's always calling everyone and trying to like keep them together and like trying to organize different things. And then you have the vata. So this is the, air and ether, which has the qualities of dryness, lightness, cold, rough, subtle, mobile. So these are things like it deals with your moving your muscles, nerve impulses, your creativity, um, your expansiveness of your consciousness, able to like imagine things, imagination, being able to communicate things, like grabbing some idea and like putting it into words. And so all these doshas are we get like for my primary doshas are vata and pitta. The kapha is like very less. And so I have specific personality and everything that's it's like when I see it like that, I was like, wow, that's like directly says to me. So I get a lot of problems in the winter when it's too cold. So I always have to like bundle up. I my digestion is kind of a little weak, so I have to be careful with that. Things like ginger definitely help a lot. Um, and so what how Ayurveda works is your different tissues have some certain balance to it, and you have a certain relation of your doshas, and based on that, you try to balance them with like with these different qualities, and get to good health. And now, when that actually gets applied, uh, there's many things that arise out of that, and so a lot of those things I want to go through just related to eating. Like I said, this is uh, Ayurveda and eating. So we're going to answer when, where, like any good investigation, and answer the five different questions: when, where, what, how, and why. Ayurvedic treatment has many different aspects. Like you can take herbs. There's dinachar, your like daily routine, making your routine actually support your activity. Um, Yoga is actually a part of Ayurveda. Meditation, uh, considering what season it is. There's massage therapy, aromatherapy, so many different therapies. Um, but with Ayurveda, one of the main things is eating, is food. And they say when your food is wrong, when your diet is wrong, then medicine can't help you. And when your diet is correct, then you don't need medicine. So, of course, for us, without good health, then how can we pursue higher spiritual practices? And so we learn how to eat properly, which I'll go through the recommendations of Ayurveda and eating and try to explain it a little bit. Then this will really help us able to get a stable ground to be able to actually do anything that we want, but what to speak of attain the highest pursuits. So, when? That's my question to you. When should we eat? Does anyone have a? Who said that? Yes, that's perfect. That's the first and main rule of eating in Ayurveda is eat when you're hungry and don't eat when you're not hungry. And they say if you don't follow this rule, then you never be healthy. It's very simple. And actually, if you just remember anything from today, this is like one very simple thing. Just eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're not hungry. Hunger is our friend. It's one of the best detoxing things. And so if we're not hungry and we just put more food in, then whatever we're trying to detox and our body's trying to get out, it's gonna have to pause that and just add more. Like if you have a campfire. Who's here has ever made a campfire in their backyard? And you just throw a bunch of logs on it, and then it puts it out, and the fire is just a few little coals. And then you put a bunch of more logs on it. That what's going to happen? You're just going to have a bunch of of logs that will never get burnt. And so therefore, before eating, they always, you just make sure that the hunger is there. And there's of course so many ways to stimulate our appetite. Some basic things like the digestion is considered like a fire. And so if you just simply take hot water, just a sip on some hot water, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before you eat, or like many people do if you're going to a restaurant, you just sip on some hot tea. If you go to like, I guess, like a Japanese restaurant or something, they serve hot tea before. Or like many people are saying, eat ginger. Ginger is a very heating herb, and you can even increase the potency of that heating. You can add salt to the ginger, and you can add lemon or lime juice to that, and you eat that. And that's one of my a lot of my friends take that, and that's one of my favorite things. If you take that before a meal, you'll definitely feel that, like, oh wow, I really digested that meal really well. And so you can train your hunger, like whatever routine you have, it should be regular. And the more that you can fix yourself to a regular schedule, the more your body can adjust and be hungry when it needs to be hungry. But there's sometimes when we should try to not eat. Like we shouldn't really eat right before we're going to sleep, if or before exercise. Sleep has certain functions that your body needs to perform, and exercise also. And you only have so much energy, so much blood in your body. So if you try to exercise or try to do some other thing, then it's going to disturb that natural rhythm, and your exercise won't be as good. I said everyone heard like don't swim until 30 minutes after eating, right? Whose mom told them that like so many times? And there's actually a basis for that. Like your body has so much blood in it, it can go to your stomach and help digest, but if it has to go to your muscles and have to go to everything else, then you're wasting your time. Better to be more efficient with it. And um, if you're trying to sleep, your body has to also digest the experiences you had throughout the day. It has to do so many different things when you're sleeping. But if it has to focus too much on just digesting food, then that's when we're going to generally wake up more groggy, wake up feeling like in Ayurveda, you should wake up feeling, if your body is healthy, you should wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go. If you're not feeling like that, then something should be adjusted. It's like a warning symbol. So basically, takeaway is when to eat when you're hungry, and don't eat when you're not hungry. Um, then where to eat. In Ayurveda, the environment around us is a very important consideration. Um, we have our gross physical body, and we also have a subtle body which extends beyond our gross physical body, and that's interacting with everything. Like all of your subtle bodies interacting with my subtle body, and my subtle bodies interacting with all of your subtle bodies. Right now, even just sitting here, and so we're picking up all these different vibrations. And so when we're eating, and we're kind of absorbing whatever we're eating, plus we're absorbing all these whatever we're around. Generally, the best restaurants always have some nice ambiance, right? Because you're paying for that. You want to have a nice thing. Like who wants to eat, on the go in the loud subway with all these dirty smells, all these things? No one wants to eat like that. But the best thing to eat, you're eating in a very nice situation with some friends and some light conversation, or uh, you got to also where to eat. You got to eat somewhere where, like, if you're just scrolling and then eating and scrolling and eating and scrolling, that's also not very good. We need to eat somewhere where we can just focus on the food. Like Srila Prabhupada, the guru of the Hare Krishna movement, he would eat. He would take his eating very seriously. He would eat in a very secluded place with just maybe one person lovingly serving him um, his food, and he would intently focus on every single bite because it may take a little more energy to do that. But then, if you actually maintain that habit, your body will give back to you a lot. But if we're in an environment where it's smells bad, it's loud noise, even if someone's like asking you a heavy conversation, who did you vote for? Or like, okay, we need to talk about our divorce right now, or like, or like, explain to me the mathematical proof of the Gaussian normal distribution. Then that's like, whoa, You shouldn't talk heavy philosophy or any kind of heavy topics when you're eating, because you want your nervous system your nervous system can be rest and digest, or it can be in fight or flight. So we want to be in a situation where we can be restful and digestible, and everything can be assimilated. And then the question is what to eat. And the simple answer is the food should be the simple answer is the food should be digestible. So it should be appetizing. If we get some food, it should have a nice color, it should have a nice look, it should have a nice consistency. These 3-star Michelin restaurants go through so much effort to make sure everything looks perfect, because that's the first thing that you see. And one of our most famous Hare Krishna cooks, Yamuna Devi, she she would specifically cut everything. So all the vegetables, if she made some vegetable dish or if she made some pastry, all of them would be cut to exactly the same size, or the pastries would all look like perfectly the same. And if you go to any famous bakery or anything like that, they go to great lengths to make sure everything looks exactly the same. And that does it does good for your to stimulate your appetite. A good cook can make something that even if you're not hungry, you become hungry and you want to eat it. Um, and of course, it's important to have fresh food rather than either on one side many people are fans of raw food. Raw food does technically have more nutrition than cooked food, but the problem also is that most plants have defensive measures that hold that nutrition, and our body kind of has to work harder to get at the nutrition. So if you have properly cooked food, you're actually getting a net gain compared to that. And it should be fresh. If it's too old, then also that's no one wants to eat stale food. If who wants to eat the food that's just been sitting in the vending machine since who knows when, compared to who wants to eat mom's fresh cooked food made of love. It's pretty obvious. The last thing to consider when eating what to eat is the consciousness of who's not only serving it or cooking it, but even like you could say the highest quality food is where someone is really consciously cultivating it, consciously cooking it and consciously serving it to you, and then you're eating it like very consciously. That'll have uh, the most energy that it will give you out of any kind of food. Whereas compared if you go to eat at like fast food, where the server does not care, the cook does not care, the person that owns the place does not care. They just want your money. Or if you go to maybe a slightly nicer restaurant, maybe they care maybe slightly more, but it's still a restaurant. They're just in it for the money. Then it's not as good. And so the main idea of what to eat is that it should be palatable. It should be digestible. Um, and so then we get to the how to eat. So one recommendation of Ayurveda is that you should eat. If you look at your palms, and if you make your palms like this, that's basically half your stomach. So if you think about all the food that you're putting in after you chew it, would it fill up half your stomach? That's about how much you should eat. And then let's say you have some soup or some tea or something like that, and then a quarter of that can be liquid. But the last quarter should just stay air in your stomach, because you have different enzymes happening, different processes going on. You need some air in your stomach for the digestion to completely go. If you don't have that, then you're going to pay for it later. And so, how do we know when to stop eating? Well, the first time we actually burp after eating is a sign that the food is pushing the air out of our stomach, and then some of the air comes out. So that at that point, we know, okay, that's when I should stop eating. At least that's Ayurveda. Your body's just telling you your stomach is halfway full. You can definitely eat more after you burp, but you just have to know you'll have to pay for it. And hunger is your friend. So if you're a little hungry after you're eating, that's very good, and that'll contribute to you not having any sluggishness after eating. The main cause of sluggishness is we eat something we can't digest. Like if someone undercooks, like someone was saying, you make soaked dal. So if they don't soak it long enough, and you try to eat that, it's going to be so heavy, and you're going to get a stomach ache, and you're maybe get a headache and not be able to do it. But if they cook it nicely and you eat that, and it's like perfectly soaked, and then maybe they boil it for a little bit, and you don't eat too much, then you'll feel so much energy. You won't even feel like a dip in your energy. You won't need to take a nap, or like in Thanksgiving they have the classic itis where everyone eats a big Thanksgiving meal and then they all just sleep because they ate too much. And so that's one thing, how to eat halfway full stomach. And another simple thing is to drink your food and eat your drinks. So it's like a simple but deep thing. It means that when you eat something, you put something in your mouth, you should chew it so much that it becomes like a liquid. Then you can just swallow it like that. And if you're drinking something, you should mix it around a little bit, and so that your body starts to digest it. Like when your saliva is actually mixed with it, it can really digest it a lot better. And like one Ayurvedic doctor told me, if you just chew your food properly, all your problems will be solved. And it's true. Um, Even if we properly chew our food, that'll slow down the pace of our eating, and also if we're trying to like lose weight or something, or try to be satisfied with less, it helps us to be satisfied with less, and also more energized with less. Maybe we're eating too much because the food isn't energizing us enough, and we just need more to get the energy we want. But if we chewed it properly, we can have enough energy. And so that's a couple of recommendations for how to eat. Eat halfway full, and chew wait drink your food and chew what you drink. Okay. um, then the last question, which I think is the most important, is why to eat. So Prabhupada would often quip that you should eat to live, you shouldn't live to eat. So it means, if we're talking about consciousness, there's different levels of consciousness, but if you're just on consciousness of, oh, I just need to fill my belly and get through the day, then that's considered like an animal level of consciousness. But humans are more than animals. We're not just living to the day to like taste that next piece of cake, or do that next thing, eat the next tub of ice cream, or go to McDonald's the next meal. We're trying to raise our consciousness to high levels. We're trying to think about what is the ultimate goal of life. What are eternal things that really matter that I need to focus on? What is my relationship with the whole universe? What is my relationship with God? What is my eternal nature? And so for monks, um, Srila Prabhupada and the different gurus before him, they've given us a process that's like a 24-hour daily meditation, connection, communion with God. At least that's the goal. And so obviously, if you're doing something for 24 hours, eating needs to be a part of that, because I mean, that's one thing. Like if you stop eating, what happens? And eventually you die. That's what starvation is. Like, so for us and for anyone, eating can become a very beautiful spiritual experience. There's one Upanishad that says if you get pure food and you eat that, that'll help make your body pure. And when your body's pure, then it'll be much easier to keep your mind under control. And with your mind under control, you're going to be able to go beyond ignorance and get liberation from your problems, from suffering. And so but it all starts with pure food. So pure food, pure body, pure mind, pure life, then you attain pure existence. And so one way that we take food is in the form of prashadam. Which, does anyone know what prashadam means in English? I mean, Ravi, do you know? You've been coming a long time. You like prashadam, right? So he doesn't know what it means, but he knows he likes it. So prashadam means mercy, or benediction, and essentially it's food that's been prepared as consciously as possible and served as consciously as possible. And according to like Srila Prabhupada, he's like the guru of the Hare Krishna in the West. But there's another guru, like the guru of his guru's guru, a few times back, named Rupa Goswami, and he is the guru of the entire Hare Krishna movement. So he said that food, like sharing food between one another, is one of the best ways to show love. So we're talking about these high topics about loving God and living a spiritual life, and so that's also why we never have any kind of function. It's considered, the function is not considered complete until food has been properly distributed to everyone involved. So that's why a nice part of this, Bhakti night, we try to like make some nice prasadam, nice food, and this is the best way to associate and share and love with others. And so we always take prasad, and as monks, that's all we try to eat. It's kind of like who here is Christian or knows about Catholicism or Christianity or was raised Christian? So communion, right? So communion is the idea like this is a spiritual substance that I'm taking into my body to like spiritualize my existence. And so why not just do that with everything we eat? I mean, I guess it's true. You should say grace. You should say, connect the food to the Lord before you eat it. But why not have that communion with everything we eat? So that's our idea. And there's a few nice pastimes that happen that I remember when I think about, spiritual life and diet. Who here knows Radhanath Swami? Radhanath Swami? He's one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and very nice person. If you ever get to meet him, you definitely will. Well, I would say you most likely like his company. He used to be based in like the Ohio area, and he would have this program where he would do a cooking class, and he was showing people how to make prasadam. And one of the ways, like the final way of how you make prasadam, is you have to make prayers and you have to offer it to God. But this was a school cooking class. It was like some university, and an atheist had gotten into that class, and when they got to the part about praying, he threatened, "What is this? It's supposed to be a secular cooking class, and you're bringing God into it? Like, how dare you? I'm gonna report you to the board, and you can't do that." And um, somehow he didn't do that at that time, but he was very offended by that. And but after all these cooking classes, he would always bring halva, which who knows what halva is? Like you get like some grains and you roast it in butter and put some sugar syrup in it, and then it like becomes this delicious hot sweet. And that atheist really loved the halva, and he wanted to know how to make it. So Radhanath Swami gave him the recipe, and he made it a bunch. But he'd come back and he complained. He said, "It doesn't taste like it when you like. You're not telling me the full recipe. It doesn't taste like when you make it. Like, why are you lying to me? I'll report you. Please, like, I thought you said you didn't want anything about the prayer or anything like that." And then he's like, "Okay, fine. Tell me everything that you do to make it." So he told him the actual way to how to meditate and make it right. And then by that person ended up becoming they started to practice spiritual life. So that was halva is amazing, and prasadam is you're converting matter into spirit. So that's like what we're gonna eat out there. It may look like normal food, but it has a subtle characteristic that's much that makes it a little different than just normal food. And there's another story about Prabhupada. He was on a plane. He was like known as like the jet set Swami, because he started his touring at the time when jet flights were just becoming popular and cheap enough that everyone could do them. And so of course he wouldn't eat the food that they served there. They mostly served meat and other things. And so they'd always cook him something to eat. And he was eating a simple snack called muri, which is like this kind of like salty Rice Krispies, salty and spicy Rice Krispies. And he was just eating it, and the stewardess is walking by and is kind of enamored and saying, "Oh, well, what are you eating?" And then out of, I don't know what caused her to do it, but she just reached over and imagine a stewardess, like you're eating something on a plane, and a stewardess came over and said, "Oh, that looks really nice," and just grabbed it and ate it. So she did that and just popped some of the muri, and that's really good. And then went around her day, and the person sitting next to Prabhupada, like serving him the muri, it's like, what the heck? Yeah. So that happened, and many years later, when some disciples of Prabhupada were trying to distribute his teachings in books in South America, I think Brazil, can't quite remember, but it was some country that they had never been to, and they were going door to door, just seeing if anyone is interested in their, this is Bhakti Yoga, meditation. We're trying to focus on love of God, all this good stuff. And they knocked on this one door, and the person opened. "Oh, Haribol Prabhu's come in," and they're like, "What the heck?" And they come in, and it's like everything's like the person is just a full devotee of God, like just what they were trying to teach, and she's already doing it. They're like, "We've never been here. What the heck is this?" And so they were asking her. They came in and exchanged pleasantries, and they're asking what happened, and she recounted the story that she had met their Swami on a plane and ate some of the puffed rice, and then she had this desire to just know more and more about it, and so she somehow got people to send her books and got a connection, and then she started practicing. But it shows the subtle power of having everything, pure food, pure mind, pure existence. And so that's the main reason we should eat to live, to be able to live a spiritual life, to be able to live a nice life that leads us to perfection. We shouldn't just eat, we shouldn't just live to eat, just that like I'm just working to get my salary so I can be able to eat every day and afford my house, and that's like not a very good thing. So that's the when, the where, the what, the how, and the why. When should we eat?
When we're hungry.
When we're hungry. And who can like summarize where should we eat? In a nice place. I mean, it's like generic, but I tried to explain it a little bit. Yeah, some not in the subway. We actually doing the Harinam. We used to do a lot of hours more, and to push that in, we used to just bring our food in like a hot container and we'd eat it in the subway. But it wasn't so nice to do that. And then what should we eat? And you can remember anything about it? Spiritual food, consciously prepared food. Yeah, yeah. Cooked vegetables, clean food. Yeah, yeah. And okay, anyone remember about how we should eat? There was two things mainly. Yeah, drink your food and eat your water, eat your drink, and consciously eat. Yeah, pay attention to your food. But when should you stop eating? Yeah, what's your sign from your body? Your body will tell you every time. Yeah, the first burp. Then you just keep going. If you're still hungry and you didn't burp, well, you get used to it if you were listening to your body. If you know your body is going to say something, they also say sometimes your body will tell you in the form of like a sigh, like, "Oh, I'm satisfied." At that point, okay, no need to eat more. Or you can kind of look at it afterwards. Am I getting really sluggish after I eat, or do I have lots of energy, or do I feel like I'm getting like gut-wrenchingly hungry, like only a couple hours after eating? Then based on that, you can adjust it. And that's just, they say the price of freedom is everlasting vigilance. So if we pay attention to these things, then we can get more freedom. And then why to eat? Anyone want to say anything? To connect to God, yeah. So we have negative 2 minutes. Does anyone want to like? Is there any questions or criticisms or anything that anyone has to say? Yes, Ravi.
Can we learn more about
Ayurveda. There's a really nice devotee named Divya, and she has a thing called Divya's Kitchen, and she sells 2 really nice cookbooks, which is a specific way to cook things Ayurvedically, so they're like all in balance. And in there, they have a lot of information about Ayurveda. I would say that's a good place to go. Otherwise, she also can do consultations to a certain extent. Otherwise, the first Ayurvedic person that I met, her name is Sandra Moss. She wrote a book about the relationship of Ayurveda and depression, which is super good. And so I would say those 3 books, the 2 cookbooks from Divya and the book from Sandra Moss, and you will be up to your eyes in Ayurvedic knowledge that can help you. And just, that's, I would say, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, but some of it's just like too generic to help you, and some of it's too specific to help you. But it's also good to have a person that's actually an expert Ayurvedic doctor kind of acclimate you to your own body, like help you understand. I mean, this was in 2010 and 11. I was not seeing the correlation of having a sore throat the next day, of the previous night I was smoking a bong with too much. And then finally the therapist said, "Oh, don't you see that there's a connection?" And I'm like, "Oh, eureka!" And so, anyways, we all come from somewhere, and so yeah. So there's only 2 parts after this. There's chanting of Hare Krishna and eating a prasadam. Is everyone ready for that? Okay. Well, thank you for tolerating me. Yeah, today is not so spiritual. It was more of like the basis for spirituality. If you can eat right, then it'll make it much more easy for you to practice spiritual life. And that's how I got introduced to spiritual life, was through Ayurveda, actually. And I figured, oh, this is the healthcare of the Vedas? Then what to speak of the philosophy and religion of the Vedas? It must be amazing. And it was, and so that's how I became a devotee. Okay, well, there's not anything else we can. Oh.
Thank you, Nataba Prabhu, for giving such an insightful class on Ayurveda, sharing these little gems of knowledge. I'm certainly more hungry to learn more about Ayurveda. I'm getting hungry from hearing all this time about when, what, why, hows. Actually, we're going to move on to the next part of this program, as we're foreshadowing into it, and we're actually going to stimulate our hunger a little bit, and we'll be going on to a dancing yoga portion. If everyone can get up.
You should never eat before exercising, but it's always good to eat after exercising.
Exactly. If everyone can get up and put their mats to the side, we'll lead a little bit of a dancing yoga.
Somebody left their phone, I think.
Class.
You mean healthy class?
Healthy class.
Well, let's think about it.